So what a payroll company does for you is it's basically the employer of record for your people. Because remember, you're employing people for a very short period of time, a month or two. And if you were to do your own payroll, like from your own production company, you'd have to set up a lot of stuff. You'd have to set up all your workers' compensation, health benefits, payroll taxes, all this kind of stuff, which is very, very cost ineffective and onerous to do it on that short term of basis. So a payroll company is already set up to do all that kind of stuff. So what they do is they hire the people, and the people technically work for the payroll company. And then you hire the payroll company to use the people that they hired in the company. That's legally how it kind of gets set up. And it makes more sense to do that because they do it on a full-time basis. Obviously, you pay a fee for that, but it's worth it. When you do the math on it, even though you're paying a premium, it would cost you way more to do it all yourself. And it would be super, super complicated. Hello, everybody. We're back for our weekly update on We're Making a Movie. And this week we have 5 subjects to talk about. So in no particular order, they are an update on casting, a script revision. We're looking at setting up payroll. We're getting production insurance. And we're also looking at locations, where to shoot. So why don't I start? I'm going to start with script update. So the script is constantly being updated, but we can't update it too much because once we start locking in locations, we can't be changing the locations that we're going to shoot, or in some cases, the days we're going to shoot, or the amount of time that we have to shoot at each location. So the script update is mostly about dialogue. And we can change characters at this point until we've actually cast. But I'm also hesitant to start changing the characters because we're in the midst of casting, which I'm going to talk about in a second. And once you put out the casting breakdown, which is, the characters that you're looking to cast for, you don't want to be changing that all the time also because it's super disruptive and can't get anything done. So the script for them, I would say the script for the most part is, I'm not going to call it locked because we are still exploring dialogue changes and a little bit of maybe length of scenes and potentially the odd location here or there. Like I'll give you an example of that. Okay. So there's an important scene that takes place between a doctor and sort of the head of the department and a medical rep. And right now we have that set in a boardroom, but we're thinking that that might be more appropriate to take place in a fancy steakhouse because in reality, that's probably where it would take place. So it's the exact same scene, but it would be a different location. The dialogue might be just a little bit different based on, the fact that they're going to order a bottle of wine as opposed to, look at a whiteboard in a boardroom. But those are easy changes to make. So the big thing would be the location, but it's more or less the same scene with the same character. So those are the types of things I'm talking about tweaking. But at some point, we're going to just lock that into because we don't want to be changing all those locations either. So that's the script update. And any questions about that? I mean, did I miss anything? I know, like this, everything starts with the script. It's the roadmap. And so again, you don't want to change the roadmap too much. You can change the name of a street, but you can't change its location, if you know what I mean. Okay, so the next thing is casting, and we're in the midst of putting out cast. Well, we have been dealing with casting for a few weeks now. Of course, we have casting directors who are working on it. So there's kind of 2 updates there. So we're shooting the movie in San Diego, and we have casting directors who are actually based in Los Angeles. Now, they're able to do casting for the whole world, basically. They can find people from anywhere because it's a whole network casting. So just because they're in LA doesn't mean they're going to cast out of LA. However, LA is a 2-hour drive from San Diego. And it's got the biggest talent base, I'm going to say, in the world. So there's a lot of options in Los Angeles. So we are looking at a lot of LA people who can come down to San Diego, drive down either for the day or overnight or whatever, and play some of these roles. which gives us way more casting options than if we were just casting in San Diego. Now, there is a talent base in San Diego as well, and our casting directors, even though they're based in Los Angeles, are still looking at San Diego based actors. But the one thing that they're not going to look at is background, because I didn't hire them to do background in for the film, because that would be somebody you would use a local background casting director, because there's people who do specifically background actors as opposed to main cast. So now we're looking at bringing in a background casting director locally in San Diego. And we've interviewed a couple. I know a few because I've met them before because I'm in San Diego. Um, but now they've said to us, hey, have you considered these main actors? Because they're tapped into, say, a local acting base that the LA people may have missed. And I'll tell you why they may have missed it is because San Diego doesn't have a huge film television acting base, but it's got an extremely big live theater base. There's a lot of theater that goes on in San Diego. So there's a lot of talented actors who do theater who are trained to do movie, film, and television as well, but generally have found more better livelihood in doing theater, but would like to audition for certain roles because they feel that they could manage it. So some of those people are not necessarily available on the movie databases, but are still good actors. So now we're considering that, maybe opening it up to see some local people who are talented and good actors who would want to audition for the roles. So that's where kind of we're at with casting. And I think I mentioned last week, if I didn't, I'm going to mention it now. The big thing with casting is, do you go union or non-union? So this is a non-union crew shoot. The crew is not union because it's too low budget, and was almost not affordable to do a union shoot on the crew side, which is the case with most indie films, low budget indie films. But on the cast side, SAG, the Screen Actors Guild, which is the union, has various levels that you can work at. So we could work at our what's called a moderate low budget level, the level of our budget, and the rates are affordable. It's not a problem. But what we're finding, so what we did is we decided, the casting directors and I decided that we're going to explore both the union and non-union world. I think I talked about this last week. It's unbelievable, but maybe it's as a result of partially because of the strike, the actors strike that happened last year, and or the pandemic. But it feels like a lot of good actors are either no longer in the union or are what we call FICOR, which can work outside of the union. So we're getting really good submissions from non-union actors in addition to union actors. So it's going to be interesting to see which way we go, because we can't go both ways. If we go union, we have to go all union. And if we go non-union, we have to go all non-union, except for this middle ground called FICOR, where a union actor can work non-union, but it's under different sort of criteria. That's where we're at. And right now, in the lead roles, we've actually had better candidates on the non-union side. So now that's kind of urging me to go and explore more of the roles. Like, we put out sort of the lead roles to union and non-union and got better candidates on the non-union side in the lead roles. So now we're looking at some of the supporting roles to make sure that we could fill those with non-union actors if we were to go non-union. That's where we're at. And so it's a bit of a crossroads, and it's an interesting time actually in casting. And the casting directors have told me that they haven't really dealt with this before. Generally, all of the better actors were in the union and everybody wanted to be in the union. But now the landscape has changed for whatever reason, and there's just a lot of good talent that isn't in the union and doesn't want to be in the union. And I frankly couldn't care less one way or the other, because the rates that we're paying are pretty well comparable, whether it's union or non-union. We're just looking for the best people to play the roles. So that's why we're exploring both avenues. And it's been a bit of an adventure and a little bit of a surprise to the casting directors. I mean, I didn't know what to expect, but that they said they were really surprised at how good the talent was on the non-union side. So we shall see. That's where we're at with that. And we're getting close to finalizing that. So we're at what we call round one, which is recorded auditions. So people video themselves. They do a read and they send in a recorded video of themselves doing the read, and that's how we sort of narrow it down. And in the next probably 2 weeks, we will do live auditions. In a studio, probably in Los Angeles, and in an audition space, and then do final choices. And then
Do
that's
you
what.
often find, Jeff, that the people that do send in recordings for the first round, do you find that your opinion on who's best suited for the role changes based on recordings versus live auditions? Do you think it changes for you, or do you think most of the time you kind of already have it nailed down?
It's a great question because there's a lot of things that you're looking for. Okay, obviously one is the look, two is the acting ability, right? So the acting ability on a recorded video is only their interpretation of the scene that you gave them. We give them actually two scenes. They read two scenes. And so they've interpreted a certain way, and they have a reader reading the other parts to them. So the readers interpret it a certain way, and they play it the way they want to interpret it, which is fair game, right? Because we haven't given them really any direction. We've only given them the scenes. So that's their interpretation. And you can't really judge from that. I mean, you can judge a little bit because if they interpret it a certain way that you didn't interpret it, it doesn't mean they can't act. It means they just did a different interpretation. So that's why the live audition, which is the second round, is very useful to see. You can say, okay, try it this way. And then you give them direction. And, let's talk about the character. Let's get in a little bit behind, the backstory and whatever. And then so you understand the character better, what we're looking for. And then try doing it this way. And then you see how they respond as an actor, because that's true acting, right? Being able to switch gears and portray an actor differently, or a role differently than you did before. So some actors, are basically portray every character the way who they are. We know who those actors are. I can name some of them. They're always the same sort of, you always expect a certain thing from them because that's who they are. And then some actors just have this innate ability to be able to switch gears. I mean, that's really talented actors can switch accents, gears, motivations. They can play good guys, bad guys, everything. And that's the art of acting. So that's kind of what we're looking for, the ability for somebody to take direction and be able to maybe change the interpretation. So to answer your question, in terms of the recorded tapes, most of them are pretty obvious. Some, like, they're either good or bad. We eliminate the bad ones that, are just super flat and just didn't even give a good read in their own interpretation. I mean, if you can't interpret it and give your own good read, it's going to be hard to pull something out of you. But the ones who did good reads and, interpret it differently, then they're all in the running, and we see how they work out. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. You can't do that on a recorded session. You have to do that live. I mean, you could go on a Zoom call like we're on right now and say, hey, try it this way. And then, obviously you could do that. But we're not going to shoot the movie on Zoom. We're going to shoot it live. And there's also chemistry. Does the actor, what their personality type is? Do they like me, the director? Do I like them? Is it going to work out? Is it a nice fit? So you want to do that live.
And then for the live auditions, so you'd typically, once you get to that stage, you'd have a few people sit in on the auditions. Is it typically the director and then the casting directors? Are those typically the people that usually sit in on those, or are there other people as well that should kind of come along to be a part of that process?
Okay, it's definitely those two people, definitely. And those are the two main decision makers. Well, I mean, the director gets final say. The director always gets final say because they're the storyteller, all right? But, me, I rely a lot on my casting directors because they're professionals. They do this for a living. They can tell, they have a good eye for it. So I rely a lot on their opinions as well. But we're generally in sync. It's very rare that we would, it would be a look more so. I say I like that look as opposed to that look, but they're both great actors. That's when we would probably differ. But in terms of other people, I mean, a lot of people like sitting in on casting. I mean, I haven't asked you, Sally, you're gonna probably want to come to the casting, I assume, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'd love to see it.
Yeah. So Sally's the line producer, and our probably our production manager will want to come. And I'm okay with that. I don't mind extra opinions. Plus, people just enjoy the process. They like watching people. Now, you don't want to load up that room too much because you don't want to make the actors too nervous. However, having said that, they're going to be on set with a crew of 35 people. And if they get nervous with, 5 people in front of them, then how are they going to feel when they get on set with 35 people? So, but you don't want it to be too intimidating, and you want it to go relatively quickly and smoothly. But I'm okay with other people's opinions. I have very strong opinions myself, so I like to get the input, but I don't generally get swayed too much sometimes, unless I'm missing something totally, which happens. But because sometimes you see what you want to see, and you're not looking for something else. You're just, if there's one thing about a person that just catches your eye, but you don't see that they're not a good actor or something like that. So I don't know what it is. Okay. Anything else about casting? Let's talk about locations. Now, locations is tricky because we're low budget indie film. We don't have these huge budgets. One, to pay a lot of money for a location. Two, to obviously build sets. So we need to find places that are good looking, suitable. I mean, one of the big things that I always ask, Sully's been doing the location stuff. I'm going to let her talk in a second, is parking. Like, you're going to have a bunch of crew, a bunch of cast, some equipment trucks, all this kind of stuff come in a set, and you got to figure out where to park them. So if you're sometimes using places like in downtown sectors or something like that, then even though they're great locations, they're very difficult to work with because you can't park close by. So Sally, tell us about the location thing. What do you got going there?
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of the location scouting and finding whether it be different houses, restaurants, bars, coffee shops to kind of film in. Um,
Churches. I drove by that church yesterday, by the way.
oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. Looks great. If I mean from the
Yeah.
outside, I didn't go in.
Yeah, so the way I'm finding these locations is one, I'm just saying if I've been there before or if while I was reading the script, it was a location that I had thought of. Another way is there's different places or websites called Gigster and Peerspace where they are very film friendly, photography friendly, and they allow like film crews or different projects to come in onto their locations and film for a fee. So I've been reaching out to a couple places like that, and then also primarily small businesses for like cafes or restaurants. They tend to be a lot more excited to want to work with a film or a feature film than kind of like corporate or big businesses where they have a lot more rules and it can be you have to jump through a lot more hoops to work with them. So specifically in San Diego, a lot of areas like North Park and Hillcrest are really good and lend themselves to that. It's a lot of it's a very like trendy small business area. So I've been looking primarily in locations there.
It's funny. Sally asked me about this coffee shop the other day. What do you think of the look of this? And I said, what do you mean? What do I think? I shot a movie there last time, so I know exactly what it is, and I like the look of it. But that's coincidence more than anything. Um, I like locations that, like I say, have a lot of parking, easily accessible, and maybe have multiple places that we can shoot different scenes. So fakes, let's say for instance, we have a boardroom, an office, and a courtyard. If we can find that all in one location and stay for 2 or 3 days as opposed to going to 3 different places, that would be preferable to me. And we can set it up and change it accordingly how we make it. But the convenience of staying and not doing what we call unit moves, moving the entire crew, is really, really helpful in terms of getting more shooting time. So I've been exploring places like university campuses. I mean, I teach at a university campus, obviously, and I've shot a movie at another one, and actually, I teach it too. So we're going to be looking at all 3 campuses that would have multiple locations available on campus, different
Yeah.
buildings, you know.
Another thing that we've come into an issue with is there's a location that I really, really like, and it has a bar area in the back. It has kind of like also a nice fancy steakhouse feel, but in the front, it also has a cafe and outdoor patio. So that location can lend itself to 4 different filming spots, just all within one area. But kind of how you were mentioning earlier, Jeff, the parking problem is a big issue with that. It is in a really busy area, and when you have big crews and big trucks and people moving around everywhere, it makes it a lot more difficult. And then also trying to find locations, especially restaurants that aren't open from like 11 to 11. So that way we can try and get in on their off hours. Is also something I've been looking for as well.
Yeah, which is going to be hard to find because restaurants, that's, are in business to make money. So, it's going to cost us money to close a restaurant for a day. So we're going to have to figure that out. But that's always the case with low budget indie filming. You got to juggle around schedules and figure those kind of things out. And it's funny. Our schedule right now, we're scheduled to shoot primarily during the week on weekdays as opposed to weekends. But there will be some locations that are going to want us to shoot on weekends. So we're going to have to juggle that as well. And there's obviously some places that are busy on weekends that they prefer you to just shoot during the weekdays. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But okay, it's nice when you have locations figured out because then you can start to really, casting and locations are the look of the movie, right? So that's when you start to it really comes to life when you see who's playing the characters and where they're going to be playing them, and it's fun. That's a huge part of the creative aspect is choosing those two elements. Obviously, locations, you can dress them up and change them a little bit, but if you're shooting on location, you can't change them too much. You're not going to rejig walls, and you're not renovating places. And we're not shooting in sound stages because it's literally too expensive to rent a soundstage and build an entire set. If it was one set for the whole movie and we wanted to contain it, we would do that, but it's not. It's multiple locations, lots of them. Okay, let's switch gears. Sally, can you talk about production insurance and then payroll? And I say production insurance first because you can't get payroll without production insurance.
Yeah, so I have been contacting 3 different kind of bigger companies or more well-known companies in the film industry. I've been working with Ratbook, Entertainment Partners, and Front Row for production insurance. We've begun the application process with Front Row and Ratbook. I haven't gotten quotes back from either of them just because it differs from project to project. So I'm still waiting on that. The application process can be pretty lengthy depending what kind of coverage you want. For Rapbook, we went ahead and submitted an application for E&O as well, just because we might as well get an idea of what that's going to look like.
Let me just explain that. So E&O is errors and omissions insurance, and it's something you would get after you finish your film, because it's based on if you film something that you shouldn't have filmed and somebody sues you because you infringe their rights or whatever, then that's what that covers for. So generally it's something you have after the film, but they like to quote on it beforehand.
Yeah. So, but the applications are pretty simple. They're a little lengthy, or not really. They're like maybe 10, 12 pages, but it's just checking yes or no boxes of do you want this, do you want that, stuff like that.
Let me clarify. Production insurance covers you for basically 3 things. It's liability, which is if somebody gets hurt on set, or if you hurt somebody, if you, run them over with a car or something like that, or God forbid, shoot them because you didn't know you had a loaded weapon. So that's a big case going on right now, as we know, on the with Alec Baldwin. So that's liability insurance. All right. Then the second thing is theft. So if somebody were to steal your equipment or whatever, that would cover that. And then the other one is damage. So like if you drop a camera or you damage a location that you're in or that type of thing, all locations want to see that you're insured, because if you break something, they want to know that it gets paid for. So that's what production insurance basically covers you for. Some other stuff too, but those are the main things.
Yeah. Do you want me to go ahead and touch in on
Well, so you're waiting to get quotes back on production packages. I assume they're all going to be in the same ballpark, more or less, because we're asking for the same type of coverage. By the way, the coverage would be if it's a single incident or what we call an umbrella, like the whole multiple or the aggregate of multiple incidences. So if you've ever dealt with insurance before, that's how they deal with it. We can go into more detail if anybody was curious, but you can just look up insurance to see how insurance is a whole business unto itself. And obviously, the type of insurance we're getting is specific to a movie shoot, but it's not dissimilar to what you'd get for your own house or your car or your business or whatever the case may be. Yeah, so you can go into payroll now.
Yeah, so for payroll, I have contacted entertainment partners as well as Rapbook. I think we're further along the process with Rapbook. I can share my screen and kind of show you the resources that they provided me with. So
Sally, I'm gonna ask you this rhetorical question because I obviously know the answer, but why are we even talking to a payroll company? Why don't we just do it ourselves? Because we're set up on QuickBooks and we can manage our own payroll. So why are we talking to a third party company?
just because, I mean, for me personally, I think it's important to get someone with experience doing film production stuff, which is why I'm looking at more film production payrolls and not a local payroll company. We're also,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
I hope
add,
that answers your question. I don't.
I'm gonna add a
Sorry.
legal I'm gonna add a legal perspective, which is gonna bore the heck out of everybody, but it's the truth. So what a payroll company does for you is it employs it's basically the employer of record for your people. Because remember, you're employing people for a very short period of time, a month or two, the length of the production. And if you were to do your own payroll, like from your own production company, you'd have to set up a lot of stuff. You'd have to set up all your workers' compensation, health benefits, payroll taxes, all this kind of stuff, which is very, very cost effective and onerous. I mean, cost ineffective and onerous to do it on that short term a basis. So a payroll company is already set up to do all that kind of stuff. So what they do is they hire the people, and the people technically work for the payroll company. And then you hire the payroll company to use the people that they hired in the company. That's legally how it kind of gets set up. And it makes more sense to do that because they do it on a full-time basis. So they're all set up for that, as opposed to you getting set up with all these different accounts and everything. Obviously, you pay a fee for that, but it's worth it. When you do the math on it, even though you're paying a premium, it would cost you way more to do it all yourself. And it would be super, super complicated. So that's the reason you use a payroll company. So go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted. You want to show that wrap book thing again? I
Yeah.
interrupted you.
Yeah, the Rapbook, just something that they showed me, which was really nice compared to entertainment partners, is that they have this resource here, which is a payroll estimator. So you can put your state. So we'll say California total wages, let's just say 100,000 to make it even. And then it calculates all of your wages. It incorporates the platform fee, your workers' comp, federal unemployment tax, all this, which is really nice for filmmakers if you ever want to see these percentages. Rapbook makes it really easy to put all those numbers in and give you kind of a total.
But you see all those different categories, Sally? Just go down. You see all the different categories that you'd have to get set up with, workers' comp, Social Security, Medicare, federal unemployment, state, MTA. So there's a lot of different categories that you wouldn't even know about if you don't do this on a regular basis. And basically, you have to get accounts with. So it is complicated to do this properly, and you have to do it properly because you're dealing with federal or the government and the IRS, and they don't like you to mess around and not pay people properly. So it's important to do this properly. And you see that this platform fee from Rapbook there is 1.49%. So that's basically the fee that you're paying them. It's 1.5% of what your total payroll would be that you're paying out to people. So it's some people think that's high, some people think it's fair. I think it's fair. Hopefully the Rapbook people aren't looking at this because I'm going to ask them for a lower fee, but they're not going to give it to me anyways. But we should also tell Rapbook that we're promoting them, so they should come in and give us some bonus because we're promoting them on this video. But anyways, look at there's lots of companies that do this. This is just one of them, and we think they're good at it for the entertainment for movies, filmmaking. They're experienced, and I think they're very fair and organized.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the update. What else do you have going on for the week, Sally?
For the week, I have been contacting, I mean, we haven't officially hired any crew yet, but I've been coordinating with a lot of crew members, figuring out dates, schedules, just because we are doing, a feature shoot. I know in San Diego, a lot of crew members are used to doing shorter sets, like commercials and advertising, stuff like that. So just coordinating with people. And it's a good thing that we're letting them know, well in advance also to make sure there's not too many hiccups.
Yeah. So just to remind you, so right now, as of the date of this is March the 8th. We're shooting 2 months from now, basically. Well, we're starting on May the 6th. So we're 2 months out. And so you see that, and we started this 3 months out. So we gave ourselves plenty of time. And when Sully says we haven't formally hired anybody yet, we've made offers and gotten commitments from a lot of people. We just haven't sent them their contracts. So next week we will send them actual deal memos and contracts that outline everything that we've already agreed to, and that so they know the dates, they know everything. And I'm going to say 70% of our crew is already committed and is attached. So we just have to send them deal memos. And the main people are attached. Like we have camera, lighting, sound, production. We're looking for, a couple of grips and swings and PAs and stuff like that. But for the most part, we got the main departments covered. Script. What else? I think that's it for now.
I think that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's the update for this week. So to be continued next week.
Thanks for watching this episode of We're Making a Movie. Make sure to subscribe to stay tuned for our next episode.